Welcome, dadas all over Kenya and East Africa. Thank you for watching us. We are always honored. We don't take it for granted that you watch us on KBC Channel 1 every Sunday at 4 p.m. Karibuni sana. I don't know how many of you realize that sometimes or many times when we go to work, we actually sell our time. We are being paid to show up to work from 8 to 5. That's what we're being paid to do. And sometimes when that comes to an end, we are at a loss for words. We are confused. I think COVID-19 has taught us that we can get very confused because that's all we knew how to do. So today's guest, Daisy, yes. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
She's the guru of Beyond 8 to 5.
Yes, you can say that again.
So please tell us a bit about yourself.
All right, so once again, also I want to thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be on this show.
Thank you.
So my name is Daisy Nyaga, as you've rightly said, and I am the author of a book that's titled Beyond 8 to 5, Critical Lessons by Retrenchie. And this is a book that I wrote out of a very difficult season of my life, where I underwent a retrenchment experience from the Pride of Africa, you know, Kenya Airways. That was way back in the year 2012. And because I was never fully prepared for that experience, then I went through some very difficult period where I gleaned a lot of hard lessons, and that is what inspired the book.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so did you always want to work in the Pride of Africa? Or, I mean, when you were growing up, what was your dream?
Growing up, I actually wanted to be an air hostess. Okay. You know, there was this, it was an advert, a commercial, I think, for the Lux soap then, and they used to use a lot of air hostesses. And it was so glamorous, you know, traveling the world. So then, very innocent, I actually wanted to be an air hostess. Nevertheless, I was also very sharp. I was an A student, and I did my degree in Bachelor of Commerce, Human Resource. And sadly, the industry then was just opening up for human resource. So there were never that many jobs. It was a new field. And so when I cleared my campus, that was 2004, the industry wasn't very ready. And I struggled for a job just like every other graduate. But I got an opening, you know, at the Pride of Africa. So I was very glad to jump at the opportunity. And I must say it is one of the most memorable periods of my life, because when you travel, you engage with people of different cultures, you meet people of different personalities, and you learn a lot. Yeah. So yes, it was a dream, but it never lasted for too long. Like I've said, the job came to an end quite abruptly. And yeah, life took a different turn. Life did take a different turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you were working, because I think this builds a case for your book. When you were working and you were traveling all over the world, did you think you were going to stay on the job for long, or did you ever think the job would come to an end? And how were you preparing? Maybe did you think you'd work as an air hostess, and then what? You had career plans. What were they?
Like I've said, I had already done human resource management. So I'm like, since I have gotten these opportunities to travel, I'll only do it for like 2-3 years, you know, and then I'll switch back to a commercial, you know, career and take up my HR. But the beauty of traveling is every day is too sweet, you know. And along the way, I sort of just fell in love with that industry. And I decided I can be I can actually progress in my career in aviation, all right? So I decided whatever it is I was going to switch to still had to be within aviation, all right? However, like I've told you, things never always go as per plan. And as I got very comfortable into that job, you know, I started loving it, and I started making plans to actually even grow deeper into that aviation career. Well, there was a retrenchment that took place. So as I was making my plans to even stay longer in the industry, then the industry was changing and the company had to reorganize the operations. And so in the year 2012, that was 7 years into that job, I found myself on one of, you know, the list of about 600 plus staff that had to be let go. And that was the change of me switching from aviation into different, back to normal careers, yeah, out of aviation, yeah.
Is it very heady to be traveling, to be sleeping in Bangkok, then you wake up in London? What does that feel like? Just tell a home girl, you know me, I've always been in Africa here. What does it feel like to wake up in London, then you're in Paris, then you're in Bangkok? What does that feel like?
It's like you're in a different world altogether.
So it's very heady.
Yes, it is. But the experiences are so different. You want to do it more and more. However, when you're the one working, remember I am not flying as a passenger. I am flying as a staff. It is very tiring, you know, very, very, very tiring. You've heard of jet lag. So you find that your body clock is 5 hours ahead. Then tomorrow you should be 3 hours behind. So it can really throw you off balance. And you'll actually sometimes even get confused. You're in your house, you want to go to the kitchen, but you're so disoriented. You find yourself heading, I don't know, towards the lobby, you know. So it can really, if you don't have a good grounding or a way that you switch back to your normal zone, you'll live a very confused life, like literally.
Okay.
You know when is morning, when is evening, so you need a lot of support to ground you back.
Okay.
But having said that, it is a wonderful experience, you know, because you wake up in Bangkok, you're enjoying different cultures, meals, personalities, different ways of life. The next time you're in London, different weather. So it also teaches you how to adjust, and very quickly, to different situations. Because today you're in a very hot place, tomorrow it's very cold, you know. Today you're enjoying this meal, tomorrow you have to enjoy and learn another, you know, another taste, acquire another taste. So it also teaches you how to really switch between different scenarios very fast. Okay. Yes, and it's really, it's worth.
So the 7 years weren't bad.
No.
They were good years.
No, the 7 years were
were
very good years, but with a small but. If you have a young family, say young kids, the absence definitely sort of affects them, also affects you, because sometimes you can be gone for as long as a week, and maybe the baby is 4-5 months. So that has psychological, you know, effects on you as a mother, and even on the child. Because like in my case, my firstborn stopped breastfeeding, I think at 3 months. I went for one flight, 2 days. By the time I came back,
yeah, they were tired of you. They had moved
they were
on.
tired, breast milk, you know. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And then, of course, just like in any other job, you can deal with very different kind of clients. You can deal with very unruly clients up in the air. And, you know, you just have to contain them. But that's not so much, really. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So one day you are minding your own business and you see your name on a list.
Yes.
With 600 other people. What goes through your mind?
Actually, if I could just describe how that happened.
Yeah.
I landed very early in the morning at the JKIA, coming from Amsterdam. That's an 8-hour flight, full flight. So you haven't rested, you haven't slept. And on landing, you receive a text message from the employer which says there's a meeting later on. So it's while attending the meeting, you realize, oh, so here are our letters for retrenchment. So the first thing that happens is the shock. Like, how did this happen? I've just reported from work. And others possibly were going to work on that same day. So shock is the first thing, and disbelief. You know, sometimes you console yourself. I think there must be a mistake, you know. I think it wasn't me who was meant to be on this list. But having said that, you just accept. You know, you just have to look at that letter and say, yes, that's my name there. That's my staff number there. And that's my title. And when you're told your services are no longer needed, it's shocking, and it really hits you very hard because a lot of things go on in your mind. You're thinking, so how will I meet my bills for the next coming month? You know, all the beautiful plans I had made, you know, for the coming months and the coming years, then what happens to that? Where do I start? So there's a lot that really goes on emotionally. It's very draining, and it can be, and it is depressing. It's stressing and eventually becomes depressing if you don't have a way of support or to get yourself through that situation. Yeah.
Were you taken, sometimes the employer is kind and they take you through some course that borders on retirement. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it sort of borders on sort of trying to get rid of you, but in a, did you go through any of those one-day sort of retrenchment, retiree courses?
Unfortunately, for the retrenchment, no. But for the, you know, financial management course, when you're employed, like for us, we were offered that. It was a couple of days, 2-3 days. But again, that is when you are employed. This is 7 years later. And you see what happens, unfortunately, for most new employees. When you're being told about your retirement, it sounds like it's too far off. When you're told, save for a rainy day, put aside an emergency fund, you're thinking, I have barely tasted my salary, you know. I need to enjoy life first, then think of emergency. So it's very unfortunate that when people are offered these trainings early on in their employment journey, they don't take them this seriously, as seriously as they should. And in my case, no, I was not offered any retrenchment preparation. That was offered way much later, after the uproar of how do you just, how sudden can this be? But again, the circumstances were not conducive for you to even attend that. You're trying to deal now with the reality. You're not thinking of how do I go for a training to deal with something that has already happened.
Here.
That's already here.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happened? How did life now unfold as a person without a job?
Wow, Pauline, things were tough, let me tell you. But they didn't get tough on day one, you know. So immediately we rushed to court. I mean, the unions are always there to defend their staff. So we rushed to court, and that was another twist, because it meant so long as the case was going on, then we could not access our benefits, the little benefits that you are protesting. And that case ran on for, by the time I pulled out, for 2 years.
Wow.
So imagine you've been retrenched, 1 year goes down, no settlement, the case is ongoing, you are living hand to mouth, you have to look for a way of, you know, providing for your upkeep. The second year again, there's nothing on the table. So it was very difficult, because in my case, I was forced to pull out of the court case in the second year. That was 2014. And the reason I did that is because I had exhausted like my education policy for one of the girls. I had actually had to surrender it just to survive, you know. The bills were piling up, the school fees was piling up, and there's no regular income coming into play, you know. So it was a very difficult situation, which forced me to downgrade a lot of things in life. I think 6 or 7 months down the line, I had to shift houses, all right? Because now I couldn't tell the landlord, wait, for a case that's not ending anytime soon. A lot of things changed. I mean, mode of transport, I had to dispose of my car. Where you shop, you know, you're used to shopping abroad, designer stuff. And I really struggled for a long time, actually, Pauline, to identify places to shop in Kenya. I really struggled, because the price tag you find in the shops, even in the boutiques, I'm like, huh? This thing I can buy in London for a quarter the price.
I know, yes.
So I really struggled.
For a tenth of the price.
A tenth of the price.
This is a total con.
And sometimes I'd close my eyes and see yourself walking that street in London, that street in Bangkok, and see the same item. So it was really a struggle, not even to afford good clothes, you know what I would call good clothes in a boutique. And a lot changed. Pauline, a lot of things changed. There was a downgrading.
So basically you downgraded?
A lot.
Okay.
The only thing I did not downgrade was my girls' school, because I decided at that point, whatever it would take, I don't want to give them the psychological torture, you know, having to shift their schools. So they dealt with the change in estate, change in house, menu changes. In fact, I always say this, I learned to live on noodles. And getting a packet of noodles, those 25 shillings,
25 bob.
That was a miracle.
Yeah.
Because you've been used as I mean, you are a flight attendant. There's no other airline within flying Sijui Nairobi where to go to. And jobs, again, were not easy to come by, especially when you've come from aviation. So identifying another job was not easy. So how I managed, even just to get by, I got into, what do we call it? This network marketing business.
Yeah.
I got into Neolife. And that is how I was able to at least sustain myself on a day-to-day basis, you know, selling supplements, omega-3s, Supergrow. And it was still never easy because you must establish a customer base, people that you've never met in your life. You know, you're used to life up there. So here you have to look for clients around.
Yeah, watching.
Thank you. I was avoiding to say that.
No, normal people.
Normal people,
Yes,
you know.
normal people.
Normal people.
With their normal day-to-day problems. Like
Exactly.
they'll tell you to come and sell omega-3. The day you go, you find they didn't have money on that day. So you have to go back home.
Or you deliver and you're like, wait for payment.
Yeah, wait
and
for
I'm
payment,
thinking
yeah.
that 50 bob maybe is what I was, the 50
Yeah.
bob margin
Yeah.
is what I am counting on to buy noodles and a fruit for the family, for me
Yeah.
and the girls.
Yeah.
So it was not easy. A lot of shifting downwards had to happen. Clothing, shelter, food, communication. I've always been on postpaid then. I mean, I didn't know what it was like. At buying airtime for 10 bob.
Scratching.
I had no idea. But now even buying airtime of 100 bob, I mean, was a miracle. So you have to get by that 50 bob you get at the end of the day. Airtime for 10 bob, throw in some noodles, 20 bob for fare, you know. And I always make people laugh.
I know, I've heard that story that you used to travel in the morning very early.
Very early in the morning. Let me tell you, Pauline, while flying, I was used to a cab picking me and dropping me back in the house. And then if I needed to go to town or do my other errands, you have your car.
Yeah.
So really the hassle of commuting on public car means wasn't something that you are used to. But here you lose your job. Along the way, you'll dispose of the car, right? Along the way, you don't have enough money to get into those posh matatus. You know, the ones whose fares are double the normal matatus.
Yeah. The ones with the music.
The one with the music
Yeah,
and they're pimped.
yeah, I know, and they're pimped, yeah.
Yes.
And only posh people are inside there.
You know, people will afford 100 bob going and 100 bob coming, while normal fare is 50 bob. So I had to make do with, I mean, waiting for this very old rickety bus in the morning, you know, the ones which bear people to the Marikiti market when the fare is very low. And you had to make do with waiting in town very late for the fares to come down.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating. There's nothing as frustrating as not having enough money in your pocket because the money gives you options.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll be done with your day's errands by 5 o'clock or even 4 o'clock.
But you can't move.
But because fare is so high and maybe you have 50 bob on you, fare is 100, it means you waste those hours waiting at the stage. You know what you call kuzuba. You're at the stage pretending you're waiting for somebody or there's something. But literally, you're actually waiting for the fares to come down. And that happens to Kenyans day in, day out. I've been there. So that's how downwards I mean, my life took a turn. And those are the tough lessons that make me very passionate when I speak about beyond age to 5. Yeah, yeah.
My other question would be to you would be, I've heard your story before, and I know that you started now looking for employment, and you got some, I think there were 2 jobs that opened opportunities for you, and they were tough jobs. They were tough jobs. Could you tell us about them? Like they gave you a serious backbone now.
All right. Yeah. So immediately, just before I opted out of the court case.
Yeah.
I got a job somewhere along State House Road. It's actually called Braham Court. It used to be Braham Court. I don't know if it's still Braham Court. And this was a job that we used to sell laboratory equipment. All right. And so, as I'm saying, with the struggle of income, so you have to walk from town all the way up that upper street, and you need to be there very early, quite early, by 7:30. And then in the evening again, that's the same trend, you know? So it wasn't easy for like someone I told you who had been used to a pretty comfortable life and with an easy means of moving around. So again, that taught me a lot of resilience. because I always joke that you should have seen me walking up that street in my abroad heels, you know, because you have all these very good attire that you've designer stuff that you bought from outside, but you have no car, you have even no fare to even get a boda. So it was very stressful for me walking up. It's about 20 minutes walk, walking up in my heels to that job. It was very humbling. And back to town in the evening. And then have to stand at the stage maybe for another 1 hour, you know. But I thank God, because that was the beginning of now rebuilding. That was really the beginning of the rebuilding. With now the extra income, which was sort of guaranteed, things started becoming better, yeah. It meant now I could possibly not have to stand for so long at the stage. It meant my menus changed. And I also was able to move back to a slightly better house, not to the caliber I had been used to, but was able to move back. So that was one of the jobs that I really cannot forget. And then shortly after, I was able to grow. After about a year in that first job, I was able to grow into another, now much better job, where the pay was much better, but nowhere near my
old pay.
My old pay. Now this one was in Westlands, and by then I had already moved to Thika. I mean, Thika, I was hopeful to at one time construct, because I had a plot in Thika. So I had already moved to Thika, but this job was in Westlands. So again, you can see the long commute. So again, I had to be up very early, leave Thika sometimes as early as 5:15, you know, so that I'm in town and I'm able to connect to Westlands. And again, these jobs taught me to always, number one, first appreciate what it is that you have. And number two, to do what you have to do to make things work. Yeah. And that's also a very humbling experience. So having to get into the Kenya Mpyas very early in the morning, even the Makangas know you, the conductors, because you know you're always on time. Unajua the bus that you normally board. And it was a very humbling experience, and it's now through that period that I was able to just decide to dedicate time for me to write the book. Yeah, those early commutes.
Yeah, during the early commutes. So it gave you time to really think.
A lot.
You started really introspecting and thinking about your life.
Exactly.
I think those are some of the short thoughts that you share in the book. What are some of the things that you began to see as the building blocks of what you've now called Beyond 8 to 5?
All right. So I would say 2017, the year I wrote the book was the year 2017. And that's the year I was now readjusting and things were getting better in my life. And it also coincided with a very difficult time in the Kenyan economy, where a lot of other companies were actually restructuring their operations. So I remember the media houses, 2016, 2017, really let go a lot of people. The banking sector the same, the manufacturing sector, you know, the East African, Portland, and several other companies. So during that period, like you're saying, as I was introspecting, I kept asking myself, where are these people going? Do they know what awaits them? Because by then I had already walked the journey. You know, the struggle of adjusting your life and trying to rebuild. So it is during those very early and long commutes, I kept asking myself, who will tell these people what it is like and what to expect? Who will tell the remaining employees what they need to start doing to avoid going through a very difficult situation? And so those were the moments that a lot of these lessons hit home. And I decided that because I've been through that journey, I was going to be the person telling it as it is. So for those who are still employed, I decided to tell them what they need to start doing while they're still in the comfort of their income generating jobs or businesses. For those who are suspecting they will be retrenched, or they are already retrenched, or they're in the danger of being retrenched, I decided I would be the person to tell them how exactly it's like and what to expect and how to deal with it. Yeah. And that's how the book came about. That's how I put together the lessons.
I'm shocked that you had time because you had very long days. Where did you make time to write a book?
When I look back, I didn't think, sometimes I wonder, is it me who really did that? When I look back, because it seemed impossible. But I gave myself a timeline. That was the year 2017, you know. I told myself by the end of this year, because there are so many companies letting people go, and every time I heard of a retrenchment, let me tell you, Pauline, I cried. I cried for these people because I'm like, these guys don't know what it's like. Maybe they don't know what's awaiting them. So now with the timeline, I was able to really push myself. And I remember in that year, I've not yet still picked myself up. I'm still trying to get by, but much better than the previous 2-3 years. So I never had a lot of, I had a lot of time because I didn't have the money to go
so you
out
have
and
no, you didn't have any social life, you didn't have many friends. Oh, incidentally, you didn't tell us. You must tell us what happened to all your wonderful friends.
No. Let
You
me
are
tell you.
traveling, all your wonderful traveling friends. Who you
All
are?
my wonderful traveling friends, fortunately or unfortunately, we could not continue that kind of friendship. Because if you no longer have the resources and the money to enjoy life as you used to, then there's no commonality between the two of you. And then unfortunately, something that also happens when you lose a job, the few friends, some of the few friends you have may also pull back because now they are thinking,
You're going to ask.
possibly you're not going to be bugging them. Oh, I don't have this, I don't have this. And I don't know whether it's a Kenyan thing or it's a human thing, because I know Professor Ndemo also alluded to the same, that the day he left the job, his phone went quiet. And the people he thought were friends. So I don't know whether it's a Kenyan thing or it's just us as human nature.
I think it's a human nature thing.
I think it's human nature.
The fear is, and also, dare I say this, because I have lost a job or two.
Yes.
Actually, I've lost many jobs. And I think one of the things about losing a job is when you don't have a car and you don't have money, and maybe you used to meet people at a certain place.
Yes.
How do you get there if you don't have the money? How will you? It becomes very difficult.
It is.
And you become you know, even when you yourself show up,
Yes.
you're not that enjoyable to be around.
Yes.
Because you have way too many problems, and you're thinking way too many. You're a
Too many things going on in your head.
You're a party popper.
You know, exactly. So I think naturally, most of them just shed off, sort of naturally. They just shed off, and that leaves you with a few friends who later on become family, because anyone who walks with you that journey really is no longer just a friend, but family. So most of those friends, we lost touch, and I made amazing friends. I mean, from now within, from within. And just back, I think, to also what you had asked about.
No, I was asking about the time. When did
time.
When did you make time to write a book?
Yes. So now I'm coming to that, the time. Remember, I had to travel very early in the office.
Yes.
So I got to the office before everybody else. So I took that time to write a few paragraphs. So by the time everybody came in the office, I've already done several paragraphs. In the evening, I don't want to go and stand at the stage. So while waiting for the fares to go down, I decided this is a perfect time to write. You know? So that's how I made time, and also over the weekends, because you don't have that excess cash to go out and party and travel. So most of my weekends, the whole of 2017, I think I can count the Saturdays I went out of my house, less than 5. I just did my cleaning and washing up, and I wrote, and I wrote. So that's how I got the time. Very intentional.
So so we want to go into a break. When we come back, we want to talk a bit about, I'd like you to talk to both people about some of the few things. And now, you know, I don't want you to say too much because I want them to go and buy the book. But what would you say to people who are, you said 3 categories.
Yes.
Those who are employed and thinking they can never lose their jobs. Those who suspect they're about to lose their jobs. And those who have lost their jobs. And especially now in COVID-19, many people have lost their jobs.
Yes, they have.
So we're going into a break. We'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome back. We've been talking about Beyond 8 to 5. What is the strapline?
Critical lessons by a retrenchee.
Great.
Yes.
Critical lessons by a retrenchee. Thank you, Daisy, for sharing with us your story. It's such an inspiring story, and I know it's really tough. I always say that it's sad that we learn so much from people's pain. But I think your pain was good for us because now we have a book. So the 3 categories of people, what would you say to them? Those who are sitting in nice cushy offices with nice jobs and having a time of their lives, what would you like to tell them?
All right. I always tell this to people's faces. If you're comfortable in your house and you think umefika and you're there to retire, I tell them that your employer ain't your mommy or your daddy. All right?
Wow,
Yeah,
that's painful.
That's
That's
the first reality. That's an ouch.
That's an ouch.
That's an ouch. But it's a reality, you know? And why I say that is because often, as I've often said, a business has been created with the vision of the employer
Yeah.
to make a return for them. And so should anything ever happen in the economic space and the company that you work for needs to make changes, commercial changes, then you're never part of that.
Yeah.
You're just one of...
It's just the way they get rid of suppliers or they get rid
Exactly.
of some investments. You're just another thing
Yeah,
that
you
is
can
considered.
decide to even shut down an operation.
Yes.
Not because it's loss-making, but maybe they just don't feel they want to be in that space anymore. And that can happen at any one moment. Decisions can be made very far from where you're seated, and they affect your life. So that's the first reality I like telling people, so that you learn to take responsibility for your future. And your future is, should these people decide to close this operation today, not because they are making a loss, but they just decide, we are tired of this business. We don't want this investment. We just want to cash out. Then what happens to your life? Do you pause your life? You know, do you decide to take your life away from yourself because these people have made this decision? Yeah. So the first thing I tell people is get out of your comfort zone. Ask yourself those tough questions. If this was to happen, how will my tomorrow look like? Will I have something to wake up to? Will I have a source to provide for my life upkeep? You know, do I have something that I have more control over?
Yeah.
If any of the answers is a no, then you need to do some serious actions. You need to take some serious actions. And I'll repeat those questions. Ask yourself, if whoever you're working with, the company you're working with, was to close down operations today for whatever reason, would you have something to wake up to tomorrow? You know? Would you have an income at the end of the following day? I mean, for you to eat and meet your obligations. And you have something you're in more control of. If any of the questions is a no, then you have a lot of serious actions that you need to adjust a few things in your life.
E.g., for example.
All right. E.g.
What should I be doing?
All right. So for people that are in jobs, employment.
Which you do realize take up all your time. Because you wake up in the morning, and you're well aware. You wake up in the morning, you go to work,
yes,
and then you come back home, and you get home late. There never seems to be time for anything.
Okay, let's just interrogate that. How late is late?
7 o'clock.
All right, so 7 o'clock. And before the following morning you wake up, about how many hours do you have in between?
You have, well, 12-ish, 12 hours.
Exactly.
You have about 12 hours on your hands.
Exactly.
Give or take, including tea breaks and lunch breaks during, exactly.
Exactly. So the point is, we all have 24 hours. And yes, if you're in a job, it takes up quite a big chunk of your time, maybe 12 to 16 hours because of the commute. But ask yourself, what am I doing with the other hours?
Yeah.
You'll possibly sleep, socialize, you know, and a bit of entertainment. You're watching movies, you've gone clubbing, visiting friends.
Or sleeping.
Or even just sleeping and lazing around, you know, you're just lazing around, enjoying the weather. I challenge people, just create 1 hour per day to do something that you're more in control of. Just 1 hour.
Okay.
All right? So if you learn to create 1 hour, it can be in the morning, it can be during the day, it can be in the night. It really depends on up to you. If you create that 1 hour a day, trust you me, At the end of the year, you have close to 2 extra months, you know, so in terms of hours. And you can have done a lot. And what are some of these things? I challenge people to identify opportunities in their workplace. All right? And there are many opportunities. And my book has a whole checklist. And I'll just give you an example for you as Pauline. You meet a lot of guests here, right?
I do.
You meet a myriad of guests.
I do.
day in,
Can you
day
tell
out.
me how I can make some extra money, please?
Exactly. So now, these guests that you meet, how do you exploit those networks further? That's my question to you. Besides just meeting Daisy, and we sit and have a conversation for the show, but besides, outside of the show, how do you exploit these networks further?
I don't.
I'll give you homework. Go and think through how can you exploit those networks further.
Cool. That's a very good idea.
Let's assume your work gives you sponsored trainings. A lot of companies sponsor their staff for trainings, internally and out of work.
That's true.
A lot of training. Some of them are even specialized. Some people even sent outside of the country to train. Besides using that training to further the objective of your employer, how can you utilize that knowledge to further your own cause? Because the knowledge is in you, we can't take it out, you know? These are ways that people, they just leave, those are low-hanging fruits. And there are so many opportunities. People are offered transport. I see corporate buses ferrying their staff from one stage to the other. So what does that mean? It means you have saved the transport fare you'd have used.
Yeah.
So how do you utilize that benefit? Can you put this that the company is saving you into a passive investment?
That's true.
You know? So it's just a matter of relooking at your workplace in a different manner, literally. So one thing I challenge people is look at all the opportunities available at your workplace, and they are endless. There are people who have internet, high-speed internet, 24/7. What stops you from getting to work an hour earlier and using the internet to learn, to upskill yourself, to take up an online course?
That's true.
You know, the internet remains there, but you're using that opportunity to further develop yourself. And you will not only be a more productive employee, but you'll be more valuable, you know, in yourself. So there's so many opportunities you can maximize at your workplace. That's number one. Then number two, I also tell people as a fallback plan, you must manage your finances better if you have a job. Count it a blessing. And I remember one thing that my pastor always says is don't eat with 10 fingers, you know. Inakuja, and you consume everything. You know, you're eating with 10 fingers. You're finishing everything. Always make hay while the sun shines, you know. Put something aside for a rainy day. A rainy day could even be a health matter. You could be unwell and not able to work, you know. So what happens? Do you need to eat when you're unwell?
Of course.
Do you need to dress? You need a roof over your head.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, people must be trained to better manage their finances, learn about putting aside emergency funds, which can hold about 6 months to 12 months worth of living expenses. I wish I had done that. Because if I had, I would not have gone into a very desperate situation. You know, I would have had something to cushion me while I rebuild, you know, while I look for other sources of income.
And then also you'd have been able to get better options, because when you are desperate, you take anything.
When you're desperate, Pauline, in fact, it's you taking yourself to those very desperate options, you know, because you're very limited in what you can do. You know, you're looking for the cheapest. Security is no longer an issue wherever the house is, so long as it's within my means. So emergency funds, we cannot overemphasize. And this is a challenge I always throw to people. Because when you tell them, start putting aside an emergency fund, they think you're talking like, you know, you're in a different planet. They'll tell you, oh, my salary is very small, expenses are always more than the income. And they claim they can't spare even 1,000 from their paycheck. But I always reverse the question and I ask them, Pauline, if a letter is written to you right now, and you're told, we are now in October, you're told come January, there'll be no paycheck for you. You've been given a 3-month advance notice. What would you do?
I'd be downscaling and saving every bob.
Exactly. All of a sudden, you realize you don't need the shopping you do. You don't
Yeah.
need to go out.
Yeah.
You don't need to fuel your car. You don't need to dye your hair, right? So if life was to give us pre-notices of what's going to befall us, people will always prepare. But life never gives notice. It's very sudden. So why not prepare for an eventuality while you can? It's wisdom. Yeah?
Yeah.
And so that's some of the lessons that I share with people. You have to be wise to prepare yourself for any eventuality.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If I am, I think this has been my challenge. Are we trying to tell people to save what too little? Okay. So somebody said that when the pie is so small, shouldn't you be telling me how to bake another pie? Like, so the pie comes and we share all, we scramble for the pie, and there's never anything left, or whatever is left is so little. Shouldn't you be teaching me how to bake another pie?
Yes, that's part of the fallback plans that I train people on. Is as much as you're utilizing the small pie and investing, not saving, I'm very particular on investing a bit of it.
Yeah.
You also look for streams of extra incomes.
Yeah.
So also that's another very key aspect. That while you're having this little
So this
in your
one,
hand,
I'm doing as much as I can with it.
but you must create an emergency fund. So don't say it's too small. That's the problem. Don't say this is too small. I cannot invest anything in it.
Okay.
That's the problem. As small as it is, eat a little and invest a little.
Yeah.
And then go out there and ask yourself, how do I
Bake another,
my pie? How do I make it bigger?
Yes.
So that I can eat as much and still invest as much.
Yeah.
So creating an extra source of income also is very vital. Okay? However, not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. That's the other aspect.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So that is not applicable to each and everybody. And that's where the investments come in. Because remember, they are passive investments. You can put your money, but they are managed by other people, business people. Think of basics, money market funds.
Yeah.
Think of treasury bills. Think of treasury bonds. Just basics. For that, you don't need to be an entrepreneur to do that.
Yeah.
It's just a decision that every month I'll be taking X and putting it in this safe investment for a rainy day, and it will grow. On the other hand, there are people that are cut out, they have the passion for business. Go out there and start a small business. Empower one person to help you run it. So that you don't affect your full-time day job. It is doable and people are doing it.
Okay.
You just have to go out there with the right mindset that I am building this business to be my ultimate source
retirement plan or something, or at least even if I'm retrenched tomorrow, I have somewhere to go. I can go and sit in my chip shop.
Exactly.
You know.
And even if you never get retrenched, but you have an extra source of income, I cannot explain to you the tranquility, the peace of mind that comes with that. Because you're never worried whatever happens in the workplace. You know, you always have this.
Yeah. Do you think that our mindsets when we are employed are lazy? And I think sometimes, and I noticed this about employment, you get into an employment space, you start getting involved in the politics of the place, and you know, you're basically not, we get caught up in this whole, my employer should be doing this, and I don't know what, and you're part of the union, and it's like you get caught and suckered up in an environment, in a culture, where you become part of a group. Groupthink. And once you're part of the groupthink, it's always shocking when suddenly the employer says, no, you have to go.
And you realize you are employed individually and you live individually. And the sad reality, Pauline, is our school curricula, there are things that ought to be taught to us when we are much younger. You know, the value for money, how the system works. And I borrow a lot from Robert Kiyosaki. He's actually one of the mentor, because he says some of this should be taught in schools, but it's never taught. In school, you're just taught how to be the best architect, how to be, but you're never taught some of these life skills or money skills. And that's where our life operates. So it's very unfortunate that when we get to our workplaces, you're only thinking work, pay, consume.
Yes.
You know?
And make friends.
And make friends.
Even more annoying is the one when you make friends at the workplace.
Exactly. So I think even as a government, there needs to be a lot around the investment angle. People don't know that the investments they can do with their little small pie.
Okay.
You know? So a lot has to also work with investor education. Let people be taught from an early age, from high school, from colleges. Let there be special personal financial management sort of classes so that people are more enlightened. By the time you go to your first job, you know retirement. The government cannot guarantee your pension plan. So from the first month, even as I go to party and enjoy my first salary, I need to start putting aside an X amount. And that's a time bomb, Pauline. The government very soon will be struggling to pay pensions, and I think they already are. So if you're really banking on the government to take care of you, if you're banking on your children to take care of you, then you're just preparing for a very hard life, you know? So a lot of investor education, a lot of financial literacy classes need to be happening much more often across all counties, all corporates, all government institutions. Because it's only a few private companies which really take that step to empower their employees.
And I feel that corporates and employers do have that responsibility, as you said, to make people aware that, sadly, I think this is the first lesson you should be told when you enter the employment. I'm not your mommy and I'm not your daddy.
I wish they can actually adopt that as a policy, and I think after this I'll go and look for the government.
You should. You should tell them I'm not your mommy and I'm not your daddy, and therefore you need to begin making decisions that that affect your life, and there's no group think.
Exactly.
You are in this on your own. There's not going to be a group exit or whatever. And when you do, you can see what happens, like with KQ, like where you are. 600 people retrenched, you go to court. It actually works for the employer. It's
order after an order, stay order.
Yeah.
And it just goes
it
like
goes
that.
Away. So I think you've talked to people who are in employment and those who are perhaps in a shaky employment. What about the people who have been retrenched, people who are at home? What should they do?
All right. Now, this is a very, very good group I love talking to because I'm able to connect with exactly what they're going through. So if you've already lost your job, you've been retrenched, or you've had an income cut, the first thing I tell you is don't lose hope. No matter how low you've sunk, just have hope that this is only temporary and that your life will actually improve. That's number one. Then number two, accept your situation. You're used to 100,000, now you have 10,000, accept. You have 10,000 in your hands. Then ask yourself, how do I manage this 10? Because remember, you've already told yourself this is temporary. Now, how do I manage this 10 and start getting out of this deep place that I found myself in? So whatever adjustment you need to do not be ashamed. Do what you have to do to survive with the little income that is now coming your way. All right? Do it without shame, knowing it's only temporary. Then now go out there and knock on doors, you know? Start seeking opportunities. It could be opportunities where you employ now yourself, or you create the opportunity yourself, or you knock on doors for other people to open the doors to you. So what do I mean by this? If you already lost your job, ask yourself, what knowledge did I leave my other job with? What skills did I leave with? How can I monetize? How can I make a little bit of money? Even from home, you know? Can I offer a few consultations? We have Zoom meetings, we have Google Meet. Can I start offering consultation around the skill that I have? around the knowledge that I have, you know. If you think you cannot offer anything from your house, go knock on doors and seek jobs, you know. As in dress up, go and knock on doors and say, I have this and this to offer. Would you give me an opportunity? And also speak a lot to your networks. Just don't go blindly. Start within your warm networks. And there's something I remember I did a couple of years back. I bought a notebook. I wrote every single contact. Every single contact. Then you find out who among this
are of any use to you, really, when you think about it.
Exactly.
Useful networks.
Useful.
Not the ones for, you know,
there are guys in your phone, you don't even remember who they were, or even how you...
how you met them,
or even how you met them. But go through your phone, you will be surprised the networks in your phone hold the key to your next opportunity. Send them messages. If you cannot afford a phone call, draft a general message. Hi, this is so-and-so. I am experienced in XYZ. Would you know of an opportunity where I can work? Sign it off. I look forward to hear from you. And send. Nowadays we have bundles, SMS bundles. I think for 20 bob you'll send so many hundreds. Send that message to everybody in your phone book. You'll be amazed. It must get you results. People respond to, they're like, I don't know of a job, but
I know,
there is XYZ. Follow through that. That leads you somewhere. This one tells you, I think I've had somewhere, go and try. So within no time, you have several leads that you're following through, and one of them must come through. So just don't sit back in the house. Don't be depressed. Don't wallow in your, don't wallow in pity like you've fallen you've sunk so low. But take your phone and start maximizing your networks, your contacts. Send a message unashamedly, you know. And let me tell you, responses will come through. Some will call you back, some won't. Some will acknowledge, some won't. But something must come out of it. So don't just sit by yourself, and talk to people. Also seek support. Speak to people close to you. Tell them, and this thing is hard. I feel so depressed. How can you assist me? People will sit down and share with you and help you get by the very bad days, you know. And pray for strength, you know. In fact, there's always the God factor.
Next thing I was going to ask you about. How do you sound like a very strong person. Very, very strong mentally and emotionally, because the journey is, I think it was what, 4 or 5 years? It's a long journey. It took a lot of grit out of you.
Grit and mental
and resilience and willpower. That was what I was going to ask you. How did you do it, and how would you ask, what recommendations would you give other people when you need, because I think at that point in time, you basically, you're on your own. You're really, you are on your own.
Yes, you are on your own. And I always add, with God. You know, mortally you're on your own, literally, but God is always there. So like for me, in my case, it was also a turning point for me spiritually, because all of a sudden you realize, if it's the friends I could boast of, the friends used to fly around the world, they're nowhere to be found, you know. If it's the money, it's now nowhere. So I really sought God at that time. And by seeking God, I mean literally. I remember one time there's a I think a gospel, and a pastor used to preach at the City Hall, a renowned gospel minister. And I remember that time, I think 2016, the City Hall was being renovated. So I had heard of him. So one time I was so desperate. I think I had not eaten. It was about lunch hour. I didn't have hope of where to get some money now to go back home. And I decided, you know what, at least let me just go and pray. You know, let me go and cry in church. And I'm like, which church do I go to? So I walked to City Hall, only to find that the City Hall had been closed down for, I think, renovations with the county assemblies. Let me tell you, Pauline, I walked, I think I entered 3 buildings looking for a church. You know, places I had had, there used to be a church here, and I'm thinking,
where you've had people singing.
So before you'd pass by driving and you're like, that sounds like a church, it's noisy, until I found myself in one place, and that's why I went down, and that's why I broke down. And that was my beginning of the spiritual transformation, you know, because I really sought God at that time. And it really changed a lot of how now I handle the matter, because even on days that you literally had nothing, if you go to God's arms, you go to pray, then the words are always encouraging. You know, it just tells you that there is hope for tomorrow. Don't give up. I have better plans for you tomorrow. So that always keeps you going. So spiritual nourishment is very key.
Okay.
Spiritual nourishment is very key. If you have supportive friends, some social support, friends or family or whatever, or colleagues, that also is crucial. You know, people that you'll call and say, hey, this thing, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
And they'll encourage you.
You do need support.
You need a lot of that. Yeah.
Okay, so we have to go. I wanted to ask, what are you doing now beyond, besides beyond 8 to 5?
Okay, I am in a full-time job.
Okay.
And I'm the operations officer of Bridges Credit Africa Limited, which is a company that gives financing to business people.
Okay.
You know, to just bridge them financially and help support their businesses.
Okay.
And besides that, and besides the book as well, I have also published a digital magazine, which is bi-monthly. It's free. So through that, I'm also sharing more resources on how people can build their fallback plans.
Okay.
Yes, how can they identify opportunities in their workplace? How can they manage their finances better or run their businesses much better? And finally, I'm also doing video content, sharing these lessons through video, which are available on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Which goes by the name Daisy Nyaga.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the book is available where?
Okay, I actually have a copy with me.
Yeah, just hold it out to the camera.
Okay.
Just this, that way, yeah, like that.
This one,
yeah?
yeah?
Exactly,
okay, yeah.
like that, yeah.
So this is the book, Beyond 8 to 5,
Yes.
Critical Lessons by Retrenchi. And it's available on my website.
Okay.
By the same title,
Okay.
www.beyond8to5.co.ke. It's available in hard copy at 800 shillings, including delivery countrywide, and also available on soft copy at only 500 shillings.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. You've had my, so after this, you and me are going to talk about what I can do with all my networks. So
yes. Thank you for having me too.
Karibu sana.
Yes.
Ladies, we are so grateful. Thank you, Daisy. And we are grateful for her journey, for her struggle, for her pain, because from that we get beyond 8 to 5. Yeah. Have a great week, and remember, your employer is not your mommy or your daddy. I'll leave you with that thought. Baraka.